The biggest thing right now was that you actually accepted a plea deal for your federal case.
Yeah.
Now, how long have you been like from the very, very beginning?
I've been for probably 3 years now, probably.
3 years.
Yeah, about 3 years.
What happens when a Louisiana rapper facing 2 years in federal prison teams up with two convicted fraudsters to lobby the former president of the United States? Before we get into this absolutely wild story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because Celebrity Program TV brings you the most jaw-dropping celebrity news you won't find anywhere else. This is a story that has everything: guns, politics, scandal, and a Hail Mary play that nobody saw coming. Boosie Badass is in serious trouble, and the clock is ticking. The man born Torrance Hatch Jr. is staring down a 24-month federal prison sentence for illegal gun possession, and instead of going the traditional legal route, he's made a choice that has the entire legal community shaking their heads in disbelief. He's hired two lobbyists to petition Donald Trump for a presidential pardon, but here's the kicker. These aren't your average Washington insiders. These are two men who were convicted of running one of the most sinister voter suppression schemes in recent American history. We're talking about Jack Burkman and Jacob Wall, names that should send red flags flying everywhere, yet Boosie has placed his freedom in their hands. How did we get here? What kind of desperation drives a celebrity to align themselves with individuals whose own criminal records rival their own? Stick around because this story gets darker and more complicated with every detail. Let's rewind to August when Boosie entered that guilty plea. Federal weapons charge. Unlawful possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. The arrest happened in San Diego back in 2023 during a routine traffic stop that turned into a federal case. Now, if you're a convicted felon in America, the law is crystal clear. You cannot possess firearms, period. Boosie knew this, everyone knew this, yet somehow a gun ended up in his possession, and federal prosecutors came down hard. They're recommending the maximum sentence allowed under guidelines, a full 2 years behind bars. His sentencing hearing is set for November 21st, and unless something dramatic happens, Boosie is going away. That's where this story takes its bizarre turn into the world of political lobbying, presidential pardons, and two men whose reputation in Washington is about as toxic as it gets. Jack Burkman and Jacob Wall. If those names sound familiar, it's because they orchestrated one of the most brazen voter intimidation schemes in modern American history. Back in 2020, these two cooked up a robocall campaign that targeted over 85,000 voters, predominantly Black Americans in battleground states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, and New York. The automated messages were designed to scare people away from mail-in voting, spreading lies about how their personal information would be used for debt collection, arrest warrants, even mandatory vaccine programs. Think about the level of maliciousness required to specifically target Black communities with misinformation designed to suppress their vote. Both men were convicted of telecommunications fraud in Ohio, sentenced to probation, ordered to perform hundreds of hours of community service registering voters in Washington, and slapped with a $5 million fine by the Federal Communications Commission, the largest penalty in the agency's history for robocall violations. These are the people Boosie has entrusted with his freedom. Make sure you're subscribed because Celebrity Program TV is the only place bringing you these deep dives into the intersection of celebrity and scandal. So why would Boosie make such a controversial choice? The answer lies in his broader strategy, which is less about legal precedent and more about political theater. Boosie isn't just fighting his case in court. He's fighting it in the court of public opinion on social media, and directly to Donald Trump himself. He's framing his prosecution not as a straightforward case of illegal gun possession, but as political persecution, selective enforcement by a weaponized Justice Department under President Biden. In a letter addressed to Trump, Boosie claimed that his case had been dismissed by a judge but was then revived by Biden's Justice Department, drawing parallels to Biden's controversial pardon of his own son Hunter, who faced federal firearms charges. The narrative Boosie is pushing is that he's a victim of a two-tiered justice system, that Black men in America face harsher treatment, and that his celebrity status has made him a target. Whether you believe that narrative or not, It's a calculated move designed to appeal to Trump's base and his well-documented willingness to grant pardons to political allies and high-profile defendants. But let's talk about Boosie's history with law enforcement, because this isn't his first rodeo. Not even close. His legal troubles stretch back over 15 years. In 2009, Louisiana authorities sentenced him to 4 years for drug and weapons offenses. That sentence got bumped to 10 years after a probation violation. Then came the first-degree murder charges in 2011 that dominated headlines. Boosie beat those charges, was acquitted in 2012, but the point is clear. This is a man who has been in and out of the criminal justice system for the better part of 2 decades. When California law enforcement found that gun in his possession during the 2023 traffic stop, it wasn't a one-time mistake or an isolated incident. It was the latest chapter in a long, complicated relationship with the law. Federal prosecutors initially pursued 2 weapons-related counts but dropped one as part of the plea deal. Yet they're still pushing for the maximum sentence on the remaining charge. They're not playing around, and the judge could very well agree with them come November. Here's where the story gets even more interesting. Presidential pardons are incredibly rare and historically reserved for extraordinary circumstances. Yes, the Constitution grants presidents almost unlimited power to pardon federal crimes, but there's usually a process. The Justice Department's Office of the Pardon Attorney conducts extensive background checks, reviews post-conviction behavior, evaluates remorse and rehabilitation. It's methodical, it's bureaucratic, and it takes time. Boosie isn't following that route. Instead, he's going straight to the top through social media campaigns and hired lobbyists with questionable credentials. The question is whether Trump, who hasn't yet established a formal pardon process for any potential future administration, would even entertain such an unconventional appeal. Trump's track record on pardons is mixed. He granted clemency to political allies, celebrities, and people whose cases caught his attention through media coverage or personal connections. There's precedent for high-profile defendants getting presidential attention, but there's also the reality that Trump is no longer in office and may never be again. If you want to stay updated on how this unfolds, you need to subscribe to Celebrity Program TV right now, because we'll be following every twist and turn. What Berkman and Wall are selling is a narrative of Boosie as a world-class artist who deserves executive clemency, a victim of a politicized justice system who's being unfairly targeted. Their promotional materials paint him as someone who has overcome adversity, contributed to culture, and shouldn't be punished for what they frame as a technical violation. But let's be real about what's happening here. This is spin, pure and unadulterated political spin designed to obscure the facts of the case. Boosie is a convicted felon who possessed a firearm in violation of federal law. That's not selective enforcement, that's not political persecution, that's just the law. The federal statute is clear and applies to everyone equally, celebrity or not. What makes this case stand out isn't the underlying crime, it's the circus that's been built around it, the public appeals, the social media campaigns, the controversial lobbyists, the direct petitions to a former president. It's a masterclass in using celebrity status to try to bend the rules, to turn a straightforward criminal case into a political cause. Boosie's supporters argue that his case exemplifies the harsh treatment black men face in the criminal justice system, and there's a broader conversation to be had about sentencing disparities, about how the system disproportionately impacts communities of color, about how wealth and fame can sometimes buy leniency while poverty guarantees punishment. Those are real issues that deserve serious attention. But this specific case is complicated by Boosie's extensive criminal history, by his decision to violate federal law despite knowing the consequences, and by his choice to hire convicted fraudsters to lobby on his behalf. Critics say that his attempts to leverage celebrity status and political connections actually undermine the rule of law, that it sends a message that if you're famous enough, connected enough, loud enough, you can escape accountability. It's the kind of move that makes people cynical about justice in America, that reinforces the idea that there are 2 systems, one for the rich and famous and another for everyone else. The reality is that Boosie's strategy is a long shot, a desperation play with incredibly low odds of success. Even if Trump were sympathetic to the case, even if Berkman and Wall somehow managed to get his attention, there's no guarantee of a pardon. There's no formal process in place, No clear path from petition to clemency. What Boosie is really doing is betting everything on spectacle, on the hope that enough noise, enough media attention, enough political framing will somehow move the needle. It's a gamble that could pay off in the court of public opinion, even if it fails in the legal arena. If Boosie goes to prison, he becomes a martyr to his fans, a victim of a system that targets black artists. If by some miracle he gets that pardon, he becomes a legend, the man who beat the feds through sheer audacity and political maneuvering. Either way, the story becomes part of his brand, part of his mythology. But let's zoom out for a second and look at what this case really represents. We're living in an era where traditional legal processes are being bypassed in favor of social media campaigns and political lobbying, where celebrities can circumvent the system through direct appeals to power, where convicted fraudsters can rebrand themselves as legitimate lobbyists. The lines between justice and entertainment, between law and politics, between accountability and spectacle, they're all blurring. Boosie's case is a perfect example of this strange new reality, where a rapper facing federal weapons charges teams up with voter suppression convicts to petition a former president for clemency. It sounds like a plot from a satirical novel, but it's really happening, playing out in real time across social media, news outlets, and legal filings. This is America in 2025, where nothing is too absurd to be real, where the only limit is imagination and the willingness to push boundaries. As November 21st approaches, all eyes will be on that courtroom. Will the judge hand down the full 24 months prosecutors are requesting, or will there be some leniency? Will Trump even acknowledge Boosie's petition, or will it disappear into the void of countless other clemency requests? Will Berkman and Wall's involvement help or hurt the cause, given their toxic reputation? These are questions without easy answers, and the only certainty is that whatever happens will be dramatic, controversial, and endlessly debated. Boosie has always been a polarizing figure, someone who inspires fierce loyalty and equally fierce criticism, and this latest chapter in his story is no different. He's betting everything on an unconventional strategy that defies legal norms and political logic, and we're all watching to see if it pays off. The story of Boosie Badass and his quest for a presidential pardon is more than just celebrity gossip. It's a window into how power, fame, and politics intersect in modern America. How the criminal justice system can be both rigid and flexible depending on who you are and who you know. It's about the extreme measures famous defendants will take when facing the reality of prison time, about the desperation that drives someone to align with convicted fraudsters in hopes of freedom. Whether you see Boosie as a victim or a repeat offender, whether you think his strategy is brilliant or reckless, there's no denying that this case raises profound questions about fairness, privilege, and the nature of justice itself. So what happens next? That's what we'll be covering right here on Celebrity Program TV. This story is far from over, and you don't want to miss a single update. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, smash that like button, and drop a comment telling us what you think. Does Boosie deserve a pardon, or should he face the full consequences of his actions? Is his strategy genius or desperate? We want to hear from you. And remember, Celebrity Program TV is your source for the celebrity stories that matter, the ones that go deeper than headlines and surface-level gossip. We bring you the full picture, the context, the controversy, everything you need to understand what's really happening in the world of fame and power. Don't go anywhere because the next story is just as explosive, and you won't want to miss it. Subscribe now and join the Celebrity Program TV family.